question is, does any part of us survive what we call life? Is there such a thing as a soul? Because nobody's ever come back to tell us about it. So it's always going to be, by its very nature, a head job. You know, it's our belief system. It's not.
And belief is what it comes down to, isn't it? I guess that depends what you believe consciousness is, and where consciousness resides. And maybe that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, because I struggle greater to believe, and it doesn't take much faith, and it's not because I have great faith, but because I've spent many years contemplating these things that I've realized that there's greater, in my mind, I'm absolutely convinced that we have a soul, and I'm absolutely convinced that you cannot destroy it. And I'm absolutely convinced of that. This is just one, for me, one door closing, another door opening. I don't fear death. I've smelt the heat from that smoking gun a few times, and I'm literally ready to go today. Because if that's how it is, then that's how it is. And I'm not like you. We're not singing about the process, because it might not be the best. But you hope it'd be quick. But
Or at least it could be experienced in peace.
Yeah. I mean, how long does it take to die? It depends what they're doing, isn't it, or what happens to you.
Yeah.
You know, people were. You know, some of the Nazis, when they were hung, when they were strung up, when they're in the camps, some of them were recorded taking nearly half an hour dying when they just kicked the chair away because there was no drop when they hung them. Some of those officers and men were 25, 30 minutes struggling to breathe. And I bet their whole life passed before them. But I don't think you destroy. Do you know when you see dead bodies, it just really is like Paul describes the tent. It's just the tent when I've left this tent, he said, and I think it really is just. You look at the person doesn't even look the same. It's like they've taken the suit off. Like the Batman suit, it's come off and they've gone.
It's funny you say that, because my dad to me looked completely different.
Yeah.
I almost didn't recognise him.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about human beings is that they're full of tensions. And the tensions, suppressed tensions, there's both voluntary and involuntary.
Yeah.
And so our whole facial structure, the way we hold our bodies, I think most people will have experienced you're about to fall asleep and you start to do a little,
That's right.
So you're actually letting go of the conscious tensions, not the involuntary tensions, which are chronic. So you've got the chronic tensions and the others. What's the word? Can't think what the word is now. Acute, thank you. And the acute tensions. And so when we look at people, we recognize them primarily because of their tensions. Structural tensions, muscular tensions. It's the personality. Now, this personality is machine-like.
That's right.
This personality does not have consciousness, does not have individuality any more than a car has. A car doesn't. Well, you might say, I like the BMW, but it's not an independent personality per se, although you always recognize a BMW. And we drop that at the moment of death. At the moment of death, all those tensions that are holding the body in a particular structure, they're gone.
That we're used to.
Right, So when you look, I don't recognize that person. Is that because the soul's gone? I'm not going to go into that just yet. It's because that machine has now released all the tensions.
That's right.
So in a way they've become...
It's been turned off, the machine's turned off.
Yeah.
In a sense,
So it's not a definition of has the soul gone, it's a definition of the tensions of the body have now dissipated. But we do tend to think in terms of, there was someone here and that person is now gone. Yes, there was a working machine which is now stopped moving. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So you can't say it's the dog.
When you describe people, you often talk about their bearing, don't you? You'll make reference to their bearing to consolidate and give you more detail about this person's character, the kind of person they were. Certainly if somebody walks with a stoop or a limp, you will mention that.
But look at how often we found ourselves carrying some tension that we weren't aware of. We suddenly become aware of it.
Yeah.
All the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah, Sal has a way of finding those bits when he touches me, and I think I was rubbing my shoulders because I could reach those the other day, and he put his fingers there, and I really jumped through the roof. I thought I didn't think I had any pain there, and I purposefully did that before I came in. I thought, no, I'm okay today. He won't do that today, and then he did that, and so yeah, there's stuff there that we don't. It's like you were going back to in the very beginning when you said, I don't like to see myself, I don't like to hear myself speak. We don't see ourselves, do we? We're looking out of our eyes and we just can't see it.
We experience it internally in a different way to what we see when it's looked at externally.
Yeah, even when you're looking in the mirror, if you ever talk to the mirror or talk to your reflection, that's not who people see.
Well, this is where we started this from, wasn't it? That when I see my twin brother, he looks completely different to how I perceive myself.
Yeah.
But if I see a photograph of the two of us, I can get as confused as everyone else if I forget what I was wearing on the day.
That's crazy.
And that's bizarre for
That
me.
really is. Yeah.
So
Wow.
so the issue here is, do we have a soul or not? And without going into religions, most of them, part of the package is that there is a soul.
They're in the soul trading business, aren't they?
Well, it's it's like buying property in the moon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Getting early.
You're going to put it on the website.
Get in there, I like it. Yeah.
Well, I suppose now we should say getting property in Mars.
Yeah, exactly.
But the issue is that people look around and they see that everything dies. And we struggle with the idea that we're going to die and that's going to be the end of us. And that is an uncertainty that people have always struggled with. And so we've created all manner of concepts to define survival. I mean, look at the Vikings, right? They were fearless because they knew they were going to go to Valhalla. So they were formidable fighters.
But they feared equally not getting to Valhalla.
Well, there you go, the other side of the coin. Yes. Yeah. I need to die with a sword in my hand.
Yeah. Honorably, a great
So,
death. Like the samurai. Yeah, must be a great death, an honourable death. Again, that touches on what we were saying earlier about some. I'm trying to think. Yeah, that touches. That's almost like the reverse of what I was talking about with letting go of mum. Where you want to let go because you think, well, if I believe, as I do, that we have a soul and that this is just a tent I'm occupying, the real me, if you will, once this machine has gone, if I was killed now or died, I wouldn't have any choice. The soul can't stay inside this thing. It's no function to it. We're not used to it. You can't revive it. So, what happens to the soul? That's another discussion. But just touching it, what you touched on was that fear, what we've conjured up in our minds, and like I was saying earlier about mum, not wanting to let go of mum because not wanting to be without empathy, not wanting to be dishonourable. I mean, I think we cultivate these things in our culture, and whatever position you're at, you always have whatever age you are. There's always the strata there's always this band of. There's people older than you, people the same age as you, and people younger than you, and people much younger than you. And it's always like that throughout your life, wherever you are.
Life is a conveyor belt.
And you don't necessarily identify yourself with your position on that belt.
You don't. And as the decades roll by, you can hear your father saying, wait till you get to my age, a year seems like 6 months. I can remember saying to my dad, oh, for goodness sake, that is the worst thing you've ever said. I said, is that a dad joke? And now I find myself saying it. I think, yeah, a year just seems, it just whizzes by.
Yeah.
And as you get older, it does. Are we destined just to keep these corny cycles going? We recognise they're real, aren't they? It's not that just it feels that way. It really is like that. I mean, it really is to me a year. When I was a young boy, you know, the summer holidays. If I got 6 weeks, this was like forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're a young boy, and then as I'm older, you know, 6 months is.
I've only got 6 months to do that.
Yeah, it's a big project. You're thinking, well, I've got to get a move on.
Mm.
And then we go back to, you know, talking about the Stoics earlier, where living each day as though it were your last. And we talk about these things. We contemplate them. Are we doing them? Are we actually measuring ourselves in that? Do we measure ourselves that way?
Well,
if we're staying in the now, we're not looking at getting a book out and measuring it, are we? Or are we?
there is no need to measure anything. Life is for living. I mean, our culture is life is for working. But in most societies over the ages, people would work sporadically, hard, and then do nothing. So, I mean, that doesn't work in our modern culture.
No.
Yeah, but I mean, now in our model culture, we want to go out there, make lots of money, work really hard for a long time, so then you can do nothing, because now you've put all the money, right?
Yeah.
Well, you could have done nothing to begin with, but then there'd be no culture. So,
pay your mortgage and die.
Who don't say it like that?
Well, I mean, adopting the modern lifestyle. This is what we do.
Yeah.
We
So, but that is a sort of slightly separate issue. So we've come to the point of death. Is there more to us than just this human body? You call it consciousness. I would separate consciousness from what most people experience in life, because consciousness is all three brains of a human being working in synchronicity. So we've got a physical brain, DNA, we've got an emotional brain, the hormonal system, and we've got a mental brain, which is the abstract thinking. And each of them has an important role to play. And when you bring all three together, you now have the ability to see yourself. Because you might call it the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, but you now have the ability of self-perception in a way which you cannot when you're only operating from two brains. Most people operate from two brains, and they varies which ones they are. So some will be mental and emotional, others will be physical and emotional. Yeah, so so different combinations, different people, and that dictates pretty much how we are in the world. But if you've only got two brains operating, you can acquire knowledge, but not understanding. To gain understanding, all three brains need to be working in synchronicity. And that is very rare for human beings to have all three brains operating in synchronicity all the time. Yeah? Or even most of the time for that matter. And yet that is what's required. But this isn't the problem of humanity. It's not. What I mean by this is, is no one's fault. It's the circumstances of our culture that has created this dystopian experience in people. But this is what we're after. We're after the integration. So the ego itself, which is the three brains together, they need to be integrated so that we can have separation, self-observation, which then helps us to understand what's going on with the ego, why the ego isn't working properly. Because the ego is meant to be operating as a servant rather than the master.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when all three are working in confluence together, then the heart can begin to engage. And it's from the heart that we observe the rest of ourselves, and we observe this passionately, non-judgmentally. This, the mind, is always judging what's going on with the other two, and that's where the problem arises with mankind, the judgmentalness. So everybody's judgmental,
Yeah.
just about. And there's nothing wrong with being judgmental up to a certain extent, but when we start being judgmental with ourselves, which most people do because it's a put on job by the way we're taught in our culture, then we are our own worst enemies. But I'm digressing. Let's stay focused on. So the heart comes in, right? And so you could say that the heart is now the requirement for consciousness to be within the body. You could think of consciousness as the passenger.
Okay.
And the heart is at the center of that consciousness. And from my perspective, the heart is the vehicle for the fragment of soul that can interact with us. So, because most people are only lost within those couple of brains working together, they're not all working at the same time, so the heart doesn't really get much of a look in. And there are those moments when they are working together and the heart can come in for little bits of time. The saving grace for mankind is when we have children. Because when we have children, we have the opportunity to focus on the child rather than ourselves. So it's no longer about me, it's about what's best for this child. And to do that, we have to separate from our ego so that we can actually see the child objectively. And so this is when the heart kicks in. And that is the saving grace for mankind to a great extent. But that is only a partial separation. It's an important separation, but it's only a partial separation. And so there is a soul, as far as I'm concerned, there is a soul. There's a fragment of soul that interacts within us. But the level of engagement of the soul with the personality is very much dependent on the level of integration. So if the person is not integrated, i.e. only two brains are working, the fragment of soul, the passenger, is not in the car. Well, it is in the car, but there's so much other rubbish in the way, it can't even see which way we're going. You know, full of black bags in the back, which is all the rubbish, all the suppressed emotions the person is carrying.
The baggage we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, the baggage. There's so much baggage in the way that there is no room for the soul to consciously interact. And then we have the ego. Am I going to live? Am I going to survive death? So I'll tell you now, no. The ego dies. The ego is just, as you were saying, it's just a machine. And the machine dies. It's the passenger that gets to move on to another car. But the car is an old banger. We're on our way.
Some more than others.
So there you go, a new definition for personality. It's just a car, it's an old banger. It becomes an old banger and then it's gone. Off to the knackers yard, end of that. Unfortunately, the majority of people have become so confused because of what we're taught that the soul becomes synonymous with the personality. We think the soul and the personality are one. They're not. The personality is a construct. Important, I don't want to minimize the importance of it, because we need the vehicle. The vehicle is important to traverse through life. However, it's just a vehicle. And so I suppose I would say that.
So when you make, you were talking earlier, when you make those connections, like we're talking about death, when you make that grief connection, that's unconsciously, there's no hiding. Sometimes when it rises to the surface, this is in essence the real you.
Well, the grief is part of the ego. The grief has got nothing to do with the soul.
Right.
It's the ego. It's an ego.
But there's some sort of desire to make some sort of connection, isn't it? Because that's part of healing.
It is part of healing. It's part of integrating the ego.
Right.
All three brains need to work together in tandem. Unfortunately, what happened to me, is that by being put in the orphanage at the age of 3, then those 3 legs of my ego one of the legs disappeared. It was I did not have the experience to integrate the emotions. I was too young to make sense of that. And so my mind spared me by switching my emotions off. So now I was just a machine, a physical body and a mind. And with the emotions some sort of moving in and out at some stage, but I don't recall, because I don't recall really feeling much of anything. Certainly by the time I was 8, I was dead, emotionally dead. And, disassociated, egocentric,
Broken.
so much there. But because I couldn't deal with the emotional intensity of grief, the loss, it was too much. And on top of that, the priests began to beat me. Because I was emotionally dead, that was reflecting his deadness, to be honest. There was, I won't go into that now, but it just made things even worse for me. So I seriously shut shop. Just to survive. And we do that to survive. And so we've got that emotion of grief which is unexpressed, and it affects how we are in the world. But that emotion of grief is stopping the 3 brains from working in tandem.
But you're saying that's only to make sure that the existence here, the machine, the existence here through the machine can continue, and at its.
It's a survival. It's survival.
Right.
It allowed me to survive. So that I was then totally obsessed with self-healing, but it allowed me to survive. And if you look at it from a different perspective, because my experience of soul is real, as well as, it could be fanciful. I've got experience of previous lifetimes, but it could be my mind playing tricks on me. I had to go through all that suffering so that I would wake up in this lifetime. So I had to go through the experience of pain. So I could argue that the book or the chapter had already been pre-written way before I was born, that I was going to go through this experience, that I would find a mother, which I did, who herself, her mum had died when she was 10, 11. So her heart closed up. So what does she do with me? She's repeating her life experience. She loses her mother, so now she gets me to lose my mother. you know, we both lose. But that's what we do, collective. I mean, that is what we do in life. We repeat patterns. The ripple effects from previous lifetimes, we repeat them in this lifetime, always with the same aim, which is to integrate ourselves, because only when we're integrated can the fragment of soul be the passenger that it needs to be in this lifetime. So we think that life is about us, but in fact life is not about us. Life is about the passenger who's coming to this world in a vehicle and who was there fully integrated when we were born. But then our childhood experiences begin to disengage. As we have traumatic emotional experiences, we start to disengage because there is suppressed emotions that begin to block up the back of the car. And gradually there's less and less room for the passenger to be in charge and to give directions and to say what's going on.
And we stop looking behind us.
And we stop looking. And usually by the time we're about eight, usually by the time we're about 8, there's already that separation to the extent that we've already been indoctrinated by society, and we've become fearful, and we've become devious, and we've become unspontaneous, and that beautiful little child, where's it gone?
You become more calculated.
We now have calculating children, and you know, we see it all over the place. You know, it's, and all we can hope to do is when we grow older, that we somehow can overcome the damage, that emotional damage, and reintegrate our 3 brains so that we can once again make room for the passenger to take charge of the vehicle. So a lot of people do not appreciate that. So when someone dies for them, and I've met many like this, and it's heart-rending, but they go to spiritualists, they go to people who will tell me about Uncle Jack or Maureen, whatever, or my mom or my dad, or my child who died, and they're hoping for a message from the beyond, for the machine, which had actually gone back into the ground because the person had died. The spirit is not the machine. The spirit, the fragment of soul, is not the personality. This is something so much greater. But when we're lost in the machine, we can't see beyond. So,
well, we're integrated with our senses, aren't we? So we're acutely.
And so many of us think we are the machine.
Yes.
We think that is all.
if you identify with I is the machine. If you identify with Brian is the machine. I identify with Sal, but I know that Sal is the machine. So I don't have a problem with Sal. In fact, I quite like Sal. I love him. However, the point is that we need to be able to separate and accept ourselves. We need to accept the machine. We cannot change the machine. It's a chicken and egg. We cannot change the machine. The machine is the machine. Our machines have been damaged when we were young. We've been hardwired wrong, most of us, and we cannot change that. However, when we manage to integrate all 3 brains, we can see ourselves in perspective, and then we can look at ourselves and we can laugh at ourselves, we can love ourselves, we can accept ourselves, and then there is peace in the machine. Yeah, and that's what we're after. We're after the peace, which is why it's important to feel, to experience our grief fully. So, you know, you talk about those 4 years, you had those friends, some of whom died. It's always a shock. It has to be a shock by necessity. And what do you do with those emotions? What do you do with the emotions? there's nothing to be done with the emotions. You need to experience it.
Yeah.
You can talk about it to death.
Yeah. That's right.
You need to experience it.
Yeah.
How do you do that? That is the dilemma. Now, I was very fortunate to have seen my dead client for 10 minutes. And I'd had many other experiences before that were leading me to this point. But that was the ultimate catalyst to release that emotion in me. And that was part of it. I mean, grief is not the only emotion we need to deal. We need to deal with forgiveness as well. But as far as grief is concerned, which most of us experience, we need to somehow release that. Now, one very good way is to actually write. And this is to sit down somewhere and to give yourself permission to write about your experience. And I don't mean on a computer keyboard. You have to literally write it with your hand. And you write about the good of the person you knew, the bad of the person, all your concerns, all your griefs, all your angers, all your envies, whatever the emotions are, you put it all down on paper without censoring. Because we censor, we censor within ourselves, let alone censoring with others.
Yeah.
So without censoring, total, complete, 100% honesty with oneself, just write it all down.
Yeah.
And you'll find as you're writing that the tears come. Because you're now making a direct connection. You're engaging all three brains. In the writing, you're engaging all three brains. And as you do so, you move from knowledge to understanding. And as you do that, it all comes out. And it could take you a week, it could take you 2 weeks. And you keep coming back, you write more and more and more. And you do it till you're spent. There's no other, there's many other ways, but this is a very powerful way of letting go of grief. But we make excuses, right? I'll do it tomorrow.
No, I keep a diary, and I often find when I've looked at stuff I've written years ago, and it's brought me to tears.
Yeah.
Because I think, who is this poor wretch?
Yeah.
I want to comfort this person. Who is this?
Yeah.
Oh, it's me.
Well, the thing about a diary, which I've never done and I can see the value in, is that although you're expressing a little bit of yourself, it's just that, it's just a little bit of yourself.
Yeah.
And what I'm suggesting is a concerted frontal attack, if you like. You sit down and you write, and you really keep regurgitating from every angle, everything to do with that particular person, till you've put it all down. And it takes time. If you can even put a picture, if you have a picture, a photo, light a candle, and you just keep that candle lit. It's a bit like a little temple until you've finished all your writing. At which point you can then say, okay, I'm done, and you can rip it away. Now, in your case, I've heard you say before about writing poetry, so you could even express yourself in a poetic manner. It doesn't matter. All tools are good tools.
Yes.
The point is to really exhaust that seam of grief till it's spent.
This is what the indigenous cultures do, isn't it? They go intensely into that emotional experience with each other and openly and vividly express it.
Whereas we're taught to subdue, to be controlled, in the West, certainly. More so, and particularly blokes. We have to, especially in Britain, to stiff upper lip. We like to think that that's all we need, is to just bite our tongue and soldier on. But you're right, it doesn't. There's no connection doing it, because that's not real. That's like going back in time when you were a little boy. You're taken away. It's totally overwhelming, and part of you just to protect yourself, just close the door to your heart closed in a sense. And the bolt was put over, because you...
Concrete, mate. Concrete.
Yes, yeah. But it's you know,
Sledgehammer.
but equally, you know, it doesn't matter what you put in front of your heart. When the moment, when the right time, the right moment, the right trigger, whatever analogy you want to use, it will pierce your heart. And let
It's a slow process. I mean, certainly in my life,
yeah.
there were many instances which began to work into my heart.
Yeah.
And there were many very painful instances, but many painful instances that gradually opened me up a little bit more. And it's going with that experience, really. And you know, we're all the same.
Yeah.
You know, like there's no
Yeah.
better or worse person in
No.
terms of experience. We all have the same emotions. We all have the same problems in life. We all. Even he's got the same problems in life. You know,
Yeah,
we're all trying to overcome
Yeah.
the same difficulties in life. We just do it slightly different and at different times. But
And this is one that comes to all of us.
yeah, sooner or later.
Yeah.
And the question is whether we actually succeed or not. And I would argue that many of us have not succeeded in previous lifetimes. But this lifetime is an opportunity to really, finally, open up, connect with our hearts, and rise forth in consciousness. I think so many people are ready. According to Charlie, there's about 4 billion who are ready, sort of, or will be ready. Some of them are still to be born. Anyway, yeah, so that's where we are.
Well, there definitely seems to be a great awakening, that's for sure. And it's taken this to wake people up.
Well, and the start of that is awareness, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's been a jolt out of the ordinary. It's been breaking the cycle culturally with COVID, seeing the extent, you know, once you begin to see the extent of the corruption and the failings and the shortcomings and just how complex and deep it is, then that's part of the culture you can't hang on to any. You can't, if you were holding on to any of that, all your preconceived views have to go in the bin. You have to start again. You know, I don't work anymore, so many of my days I think, right, what is my life about? Do I just go back to work and be another, you know, sorting out other people's problems, or why have I done that for so long? Like Sal was saying earlier, why do we just go to work until, well, I've got to get yourself a job because my dad told me that, and his dad told him, and his dad told him.
Yeah.
And you respect your dad when you're young, and he's saying, you know, get a job, son. You need to work. A man's got to provide for his family, look after himself. And all these things are based on. It all sounds very reasonable. It's not unreasonable, and hard work is its own reward. But you look back as you get older, and you think, gosh, yeah, you know, people around you are dying. You're getting older. It's whether you don't have to be in the army. Now you're getting to the point where you're becoming more aware of your mortality, and it's very real. And how then I look at my life and try and measure that. And
Sit down.
It's a peculiar kind of measuring tape, isn't it? But you become aware of what is your life about. What does living mean? It's not just the as John Lennon said, you know, you make a load of plans, and then the living is the bit in between, the sort of where you're actually doing this stuff, because you can't just spend your whole life planning. You'll never live it.
Many of us do.
Planning for every eventuality. And you, how can you? You don't know what's around the corner. There has to be a certain element of trust. I mean, your trust, Charlie, you trust your higher self. You trust that. I mean, I love the way you talk about it, actually, because it's almost as if, well, I don't need to. I think when I was having a session with you earlier, the last time you said, I don't really care about that, I just asked Charlie. And I think, yeah, he really means that. He doesn't care if my leg's hanging off. What he'll do is just ask Charlie. And that's great. I didn't think that was a bad thing. I actually thought that was really good. I thought, yeah, just ask Charlie. Just ask God. Why wouldn't you? Well, have you got a better idea? Or, I mean, somebody tell me. I'm learning. But that sounds like a good idea to me. If you're trusting some higher part of yourself, some higher part of
I'm
this.
trusting the passenger
Right. Well,
rather than the machine.
whatever.
The machine doesn't know enough.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and you
People get
recognize that,
confused.
but we recognize that, don't we? We recognize that we in that respect, we're not enough. I'm not enough anyway. Do you feel like you are? You know, in the context of the body, the machine, just, I suppose, just doing things, just living, is that enough? Just to, would it not enter your mind with the awareness that you have now?
Wow, how much longer have we got?
I don't know, how long are we talking for?
That's a big question.
That's an hour and 34 minutes.
Wow.
That's a bit of editing. You've got some material to work with, maybe.
Wow, I don't even know how to answer that. I mean, I don't identify with the machine any more than this is the experience that I have.
Yeah.
And this is to teach me what I need to learn.
Yeah.
And I'm intellectually aware of what I believe to be the situation that, you know, the consciousness is something that rides in the machine when I let it. And I'm not even answering your question. I don't even know how I'm not answering it.
Well, I mean, are you going beyond the mind in that respect, or are you driven by you, or is the mind your default? Is that what we do? Do you think that's how we go back to the mind as a base for, you've intellectualized it, you've rationalized it, you think, right, this is my core belief system pretty much, this is what I think this is all about, what we're experiencing, who we are, or we're not, and my default is to, I operate from there, I operate from that position, I always go back to there, or is it more than that?
I think for many of us, and probably myself included, it is the default position, because when I'm not paying attention, that's where I end up.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah, I can relate to that. I can resonate with that. Yeah.
And so it needs my attention to actually not end up there. It's a constant effort.
To focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, stay focused.
But it's a rewarding effort.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I'm aware of that. And so that's what Sal was saying. He was touching upon it. So those three brains, in a sense, it takes a great effort, focus to what is it we're doing?
Actually, I'm going to disagree with you.
Oh, please.
It's not about effort. It's about letting go.
Okay. That sounds even better, doesn't it? When somebody says just let go, you think, oh, thank you. Instead of having to carry it up that hill.
We spend a lot of energy. We spend a lot of energy in keeping stuff down, and it is both the easiest thing and the hardest thing to, when there's an emotion within us, to let it flow. But we don't, for a whole variety of reasons. Usually it's because it's two things. One is sort of because you're judging that is inappropriate, or our mind is judging that it's going to overwhelm us. So we put the lid on the emotion. And having the freedom to allow the emotion to overwhelm us is the freedom to integrate, because the thing about an emotion, when it flows through us, it doesn't hang about. It just flows and it's gone. You know, it's part of the hormonal system, part of the electrical system. It shoots through the nervous system. It's gone. But when we hang on to that, when the mind gets in the way, then the emotion gets locked within the nervous system in different in muscles, and that's when problems arise. That's when people get ill in time, because you go into muscular tension.
So this is going back to what you were saying then about the more primitive cultures who come together collectively, and they exercise or they orchestrate something whereby they can all enter into feeling something, which is extreme emotions, almost this shamanistic experience where you will feel this emotion by the time we're all finished, and we'll all
People resonate. We've talked about this before. We all resonate with each other.
Yeah.
So if someone has a strong emotion,
Yeah.
then your choice is to either totally switch off or to flow with it. Well, the more people around you who are experiencing that emotion, the harder it is to switch off from that.
Yeah.
You're going to get caught in the slipstream.
Yeah. So, and it moves beyond the mind. It's not just intellectual. Now we're all feeling it, and we're all in the room experiencing the same thing. Even when groups taking ayahuasca have reported even the visions they've seen, everyone's seeing the same thing. They're all seeing the same little goblins running through the trees or whatever, but they're all seeing the same ones, and they're saying, "You see that little guy over there?" And someone else says, "Yes, I can see him." And you think, well, so there's a real resonance.
I'm going to share something. I should have said something before, but it's hard to know when to share these things. Emotions are not the same as feelings. Emotions are part of the ego. Feelings belong to the passenger. So feelings belong to the heart. Emotions belong to the mechanism. Emotions are sensations. They're not feelings. But our language, we live in such a distorted world that we confuse emotions and feelings.
I do it all the time.
Listen, my wife, I've told her so many times, she knows, too much effort. Too much effort. And she's an enlightened being in so many ways. Too much effort. Okay?
Well,
so, be at peace with that one. However, language is everything. Language, the way that we use words describes how we experience our world and how we co-create our world. The words that we use, this is why people are trying to change with the woke agenda. They're trying to change the words.
Because of the power.
They want to redefine reality.
Because it has power. Your spelling, your casting spells, you're literally.
Words are powerful.
Words are powerful.
And so it is important, in my opinion, it is important to recognize that emotions, which are of the self, are not the same as feelings, which are of the passenger, which is of the heart. And what happens is that we conflagate together emotions and feelings as though the same thing. So we're forever saying, "Oh, I feel this, I feel that." No, you're sensing this, you're sensing that. You're not feeling it.
Yeah, because if you ask me, if I'm ever having a session and you say to me first thing, "How are you feeling today?" I'll invariably say, "I haven't got a clue. I'm rubbish at I mean, I don't know about you, especially as a guy. That's what I envy about women. Seem to be so much more connected with how they feel about something. I don't. I'm not
but even that is not correct.
I'm not very good with that.
Because when you say to someone, "How are you feeling?" You're actually asking, "How are you sensing?" What are you experiencing? The word is actually, what are you experiencing? Yeah. And the thing about experiencing is we experience things in our bodies, but we talk about emotions as though they're not within our bodies, and that is part of the disassociation that we ourselves have as human beings. This is why we struggle to integrate all three brains, because we can't even talk straight.
There must be a fag paper between the two then, because I even just trying to get my head around that is.
I see where you're going with that, Sal, because I can recognise the difference between how I feel today physically and how I feel about that. Those are different things. So how am I sensing myself today, and how do I feel about how I sense today are different things. I think that's what you're saying.
I'm not sure if I am or not, but I'll take your word for it.
You can't say everything you've just said and then finish like that. No, I think that's what you're saying. That is what you're saying, yeah. I think you are aware that there are two different things. But what I'm saying is I'm often not aware of either. I'm not, of getting it right in the sense of how you. What are you experiencing? I mean, people don't say. We don't say to one another, do we? How's your experience today?
Yeah.
And maybe,
And that's what we need to do.
Maybe that would
we
be
need
more
to begin
accurate.
somewhere.
But in the other way around, it's also possible, and I'm pleased that I found this myself in the last couple of years, that I've been able to separate the experience I've been having in the moment from actually being able to connect to feelings that I think is really important to connect to, to go to that place in the heart, especially in moments of need, and actually completely connect with that.
Okay. So, to put more fuel on that particular fire, so emotions are all to do with fear and the self. So emotions are egocentric. It's all about me. Whereas feelings, they're all about the rest of the world around me. It can also be about me, but not, it's me separated from my ego. So from my feelings, I can look down at my ego and appreciate where my ego is and feel compassion, understanding, all the positive.
Yeah, I think that's what Brian was saying. He's just he said it beautifully that he can separate the two. Oh, bless you, mate. That's great that you can do that.
I don't always do it. I don't always practice that particular thing, although I'd like to.
But you're aware of it.
I'm aware of it.
It's
and I'm grateful for it.
And up till now, you had no reason to question. I'm offering you a perspective to separate them so that you can be clear, so that you can apply that in yourself and in your world.
Exactly.
It is when we're lost in our egos, we're always alone, lonely, because it's only us. When we're in our feelings coming from our heart, we are connected to the rest. So there is no sense of separation.
Because there is no separation.
So the ego can experience separation, but from our hearts we can give a companionship to our ego. Because from within the heart we are in a state of companionship with everybody, with nature, with the world, with the universe. There is no separation. We know that we are connected, and that is the major difference between ego and heart, between the vehicle and the passenger.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that very much. Thank you, both. I love that. I can feed from that. I can live on that. Believe it. Yeah. What a wonderful conclusion to death. It's really good. Thank you.
Yes. Don't know. I feel like I want to say something about that, but I'm not quite sure. Maybe there is more to be said. Of course, there's a lot more to be said. But I'm wondering if we can add this to religion. We'll bring the concept of soul, spirit, when we have a discussion on religion, which I'd like to do pretty soon as well.
That would be a fun one.
Let's not fight.
Why should we?
No, I'm pulling your leg.
Depends whether we come from our ego or our hearts.
Thank you. Well,
Yes.
I'm a work in progress.
Aren't we all?
We all are.
Yeah.
I'm a work in progress, and we're all in the same boat, every single one of us.
That's the bit that's easy to forget, because we see other people who we perceive as other as being complete, and then we feel that we're not that, and that's purely in there.
That's right.
That's a judgment.
That other people have it more together than you do. When peel back the layers, we're all just as fragile, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
But we do that, you see, I mean, coming back to the mind, just we do that as a means of diminishing ourselves. Self-judgment.
Yeah.
We're never good enough. Yeah? And so we berate ourselves for not being good enough in some way or other. And this is part of the tricks of the mind to keep us under thumb, subdued, controlled.
Because that's like the ego, lets the ego run rampant.
Yeah, it's like some sort of faux humility in a way. You know, I'm ever so humble, doff your cap, but actually you're actually more than that, and we all need one another. Yeah, and not just to make podcasts, but to gain more, to be more, to be. We don't be more, maybe just be would be enough.
Good start.
Yeah.
So, if you want to engage with us again, how to be ordinary human beings, you're in the right place. Well, I say that, but being ordinary is harder than it seems. You know, most people try to be something they're not.
Yeah.
I'm ordinary, I'm special.
I'm specially ordinary.
All right, we'll finish here then.
Thank you.
That was really good.
So if you enjoyed this, give us a thumbs up please, and subscribe.
Yeah, press the like
Oh, actually
button.
no, down there, subscribe.
That's what they do, isn't it? Don't forget to press the button and press the bell or whatever. Yeah.
And tell your friends.
Yeah.
You know people who think this would be interesting for or challenging for.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we need to be challenged by this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Tell you.
Yeah.
Bring this to people who you think need it.
Yeah, I've certainly been challenged by it. Yeah, touched by it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
You can't get in at the button.